Hi everyone, my name is MadMatt Lugos and welcome back to Death Stranding. So in the last episode we finally met Mads Mikkelsen's character, combat veteran. There was sort of a huge spike in chiral activity and we got transported to what I'm going to presume was the combat veteran's beach, where it was like a World War, I want to say it was a World War One trench style trenches more than anything else.
At least you know your limits.
Exactly, Sam. And then after we dealt with that whole combat section, which was a bit of a kind of lackluster boss fight, I suppose. I mean, it was all right, but we just had to shoot everybody, you know, in a kind of tunnel, mazy section. We just kind of got an idea that he wants BB back. So if we, and while I've been doing deliveries and I've been resting in private rooms, I have been getting repeat flashbacks, so some of the flashbacks to Mads and BB that we've already had, so I guess we've seen them all now. And I guess the general message, the general sort of summary of what we know about the combat veteran is that his wife, his ex-wife, his partner, whatever, was a still mother, and I'm unsure. Maybe we'll learn in some of the text logs, but where the still mothers kind of originate from. We might have been told already, and I'm forgetting. But so his wife had become a still mother, and given birth to a baby, and that's the baby that Sam has now. And the combat veteran had begun to see this baby as his actual son or child. I don't know what the gender of the child, but come to see it as his actual child. He tried to just stay positive for a period of time, kind of. Well, but at the same time, I think he was kind of trapped there. If it was at Bridges, I'm going to presume it was with Bridges. He eventually tried to take BB and escape, but got recaptured by the security there. Got beaten up a little bit. Took it pretty hard. We saw that he was drinking, that he was upset, that he longed for his wife to be back with him, that he was very nostalgic about her. And then when we went through that whole boss section, I don't know whether the whole him being a soldier is perhaps more of a metaphor for his personal struggles, or whether he was actually a soldier and it's some kind of like PTSD kind of beach where he's reliving his struggles. But one thing that we did see is when he stood up, he had that scar on his stomach. Is it like a cesarean style scar, just like Sam did in the very beginning of the game in that cutscene, after the whole bit with Igor dying and the necrosis and the explosion. So that was very interesting, but we haven't really got any answers. I've kind of done a little bit of a 180. I don't think that the combat veteran is necessarily this other person that Higgs has mentioned that completes him. I don't necessarily think that that's the combat veteran. I'm thinking that maybe that might be someone else and the combat veteran might be someone separate. I don't know. I'll leave that one up in the air. And then we went to see Mama and we learned about her tragic story, about how she died when she was about to give birth. And her baby died, but she lived. And the baby turned into a BT, and the baby turned into a BT, but they're still kind of linked. Like her baby in BT form is what's keeping her alive. But the BT can't go to the other side without killing her. That's my interpretation of it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think that they're both linked and they can't leave each other. If one leaves the other, then so if the BT leaves, I think Mama will die as well. So this episode, that's a bit of a long intro, alright, so but this episode is going to be a little bit different. I was a bit reluctant to do an episode like this, but basically what I'm going to be doing here is just going to be a reading Well, at least I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm just going to spend as much time as possible reading all the stuff that's built up in our data logs, the interview logs, because I've been trying to read 2 or 3 in an episode, but because I'm doing deliveries off camera and everything, they're just building up and building up, and I'm never going to finish them all. And then I might read something that would be important for my understanding of the story, and then I might not read it till much later. My mail was built up to a ridiculous amount because I don't want to read stuff off camera. Because that it might be important to the story, and then some of the mail is kind of useless. It's just kind of, some of it's like loose gameplay tips, but some of it is important. So I'm going to spend some time reading data, interviews, and just giving out some theories, trying to interpret some of the lore. So let's just go through them all. Let's get Die Hardman's drivel out of the way first. Okay, so the symbiotic surveillance society. In the world before Death Stranding, the online service industry was huge, possibly the biggest of them all. People wanted their lives to be smooth and stress-free, and countless companies were happy to oblige. Customers would provide information about themselves, browsing history, purchasing history, that kind of thing, and in return they'd get a pleasant, personalised internet experience. It wasn't anything like the dystopian surveillance state people used to worry about in the 20th century. Predictive advertising, customised health tips, that sort of thing. The internet transformed our lives, and in many ways for the better, but not everyone was happy. People started to worry that it was encroaching on people's freedoms, that the price we paid for so much convenience was constant monitoring and an abdication of control. We'd become members of a symbiotic surveillance society. Naturally, there were people who have similar concerns about the chiral network. There's a pretty sizable faction that wants nothing to do with it whatsoever. That said, I can't help but feel that they're being naive. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Connectivity and convenience have to come at a price. What's more, the stakes are a whole lot higher nowadays. We're not talking about a simple trade-off between privacy and convenience. It's the network or bust, survival or extinction, as far as humanity is concerned. Okay, so I just wanted to... This leads into something that I've written down in my notes. Yes, I do take notes for this kind of game. That I want to just throw the possibility out there that Sam, working for Bridges and the UCA and trying to establish the chiral network, we actually might be working on the wrong side here. That we might actually be doing a bad thing. That expanding the network actually brings us closer to another. Like Mama said, it could be bringing us closer to another Death Stranding, and we're actually we're just loosening the divide between our side and the other side, and bringing everybody closer to the beach and the scene. And yeah, so I just want to throw the possibility out there that everything we're doing with the chiral network and Bridges, we might actually be doing the wrong thing, and what the combat veteran and Higgs are trying to stop, even though they seem unhinged, they might actually be trying to stop it. It might be a good thing that they're trying to stop it. That could be completely wrong, but I'm just throwing it out there, just theory. I like to speculate. I like to throw a lot of different things out there. I mean, I remember when I played Nier Automata, some people would just kind of like be a bit, no, that's not what it's like. And it's like, well, I'm not saying that's necessarily what it's like. I like, it's fun to speculate about possibilities, right? I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that? Why do you just want to be on train tracks? Anyway, likes secrete oxytocin. Okay, yeah. Before the Stranding, the whole world was connected. There were networks, called social networks we called them, that people used to communicate all the time. They shared all sorts of stuff through them. A random thought, a pretty picture, a home movie, you name it. And if you liked something that someone else had uploaded, you let them know by giving them, well, a like. Sounds weird, I know, but that's the truth. Eventually, someone ran tests on the users of these networks and discovered that receiving a like triggered a rush of oxytocin. The theory was that it stemmed from a sense of being acknowledged. Even though you couldn't see the person you were interacting with, it still felt like they were accepting you, praising you, and who wouldn't like that? but the same process is at the heart of the mule phenomenon. It's believed that an overdependence on the oxytocin rush provided by these kind of interactions is a factor in porters going rogue. With this in mind, it wouldn't be wrong to characterize mules as oxytocin addicts. In essence, they're social animals at the mercy of validation. So I guess, I mean, this whole thing can be considered a commentary on modern societal problems, can't it? And how people can get, and I realise that this is on YouTube, but so this is kind of the same thing, but people can become, you can become lost in social media and the getting, like he's saying, getting a sense of being acknowledged, but it's completely anonymous at the same time. So I think you can use social media in a way where you still interact with people. That's what I enjoy the most from it. Is I like sharing my experiences and I like interacting with people, just to get a sense that you're, experiencing something and enjoy something together. But then when there's that facelessness to it, it can become a bit odd, can't it? Well, that's one of the reasons that I remember when I was maybe 17 when Facebook started to become popular. I'm 30 obviously now, and I just remember there was a point where it was just like you have a certain number of people who are your Facebook friends, right? And you realize you only really care about the lives of like 5 or 6 of your close friends, and then all the stuff that you're passively absorbing off Facebook about people who you might not see that often, you don't really care about, and it's just not healthy to know that much about so many people, and then when you actually eventually see them, there's nothing new that they can tell you because you've just absorbed it all off a screen, and it's sort of a bit unhealthy. So I just stopped using it. I don't know how long ago I really stopped using it. Maybe like 7 years, 6-7 years ago now. So, the situation after the first Death Stranding incident. There was a series of huge explosions. Well, not so much a series. They were simultaneous worldwide. The global comms infrastructure was shot to hell, but we salvaged what we could and tried to make sense of what had happened. It didn't seem like much at the time, but it was a hell of a lot better than what we have now. Anyway, the government figured the whole thing was a terrorist attack at first. We'd been dealing with a lot of those back then, but it didn't take long to see that this was something else. The craters left by the blasts were bizarre. There was no rubble, no dust even, which led scientists to rule out meteor strikes. There was trace neutron radiation, alpha rays, but we knew it wasn't nukes either. Some of the particles were detected we'd never even seen before, chiralium, although we didn't know it at the time. The more we studied them, the more our scientists came to the same conclusion. These were the results of annihilation events. It was right about that time that chiral clouds started to form, and after that, all communication with the outside world went down for good. Right. Yeah, so there is a real risk of us creating another one by using the networks this much. Okay, so from Deadman. No blue in the inverted rainbow. We humans are complex multicellular organisms. 60 trillion cells inside each one of us, they say. How many of these cells need to die for us to consider a person dead? Are there any cells in particular which determine whether a person is alive or dead? These questions are academic, of course. The exact point of death can't be calculated using cell counts. On the other hand, no one can deny the existence of degenerative diseases that gradually destroy more and more cells, leaving their victim effectively half dead. And what about me? Most of my organs have been harvested from other people. They still work, of course, but could their original owner have been said to be alive? Really? I really don't know. Incidentally, have you ever heard of a fun little experiment they once did with roundworms called C. elegans? These creatures are notable for glowing bright blue when exposed to UV light. but only when they die. It seems to be a reaction from the anthranilic acid within the organism, and it's known as death fluorescence. Yeah, that's right. Blue is very much the colour of death, it seems. Can it therefore really be a coincidence that there's no blue in an inverted rainbow? Timefall strengthens an area's connection to the beach. This is something to do with chiral particles becoming excited, I believe. In spaces connected to the beach, electromagnetic waves with a blue wavelength can travel easily through the seam, leaking out onto the beach. Some people think that's where the blue from the inverted rainbow goes. Who knows? The fact that blue has a strong connection to death, though, that much seems pretty inarguable. Okay. Okay. So we've read quite a lot of Hartman stuff because he posits a lot of the more interesting stuff. Okay. So Higgs particles. Higgs Monaghan, why yes, I know the name. The former leader of a private courier organisation, as I recall, which serviced a large region in the West and was instrumental in providing continued support to the people living there. But as we were so far apart, bridges struggled to maintain any measure of influence over their operations. It probably didn't help that the separatist movement has always enjoyed strong support in that territory. In the wake of growing violence by the demons, we were shocked to learn that Higgs himself was at their head. What to make of this strange development? Why on earth would a man who once commanded a group devoted to American Reconstructionism suddenly pledge himself to the cause of American destruction? His name only compounds the insult. Have you heard of the Higgs particle, also known as the God particle? It is associated with the Higgs field, that which gives all other particles their mass. Without it, atoms would fly apart, and matter would not exist as we know it. In other words, its very presence prevents mindless destruction. Cosmic irony, indeed. Okay, so Higgs used to be in charge of his own delivery or courier organisation. Interesting. Chiral clouds and timefall. Why do chiral clouds form? Why does timefall occur? And why does it herald the manifestation of BTs? These are questions we still struggle to answer. And we now know BTs are being formed of something akin to antimatter. Their first appearance coincided with the Death Stranding. Prior to that point, it's believed that there was very little in the way of antimatter present in our world at all. But we've since learned that this was far from the case. For even before the Stranding, antimatter was all around us. I discovered a scientific paper on the subject titled On Antimatter and Clouds. According to the paper, the gamma radiation generated by lightning strikes can trigger the formation of positrons, and indeed, particles of antimatter can be detected inside regular rain clouds. The mechanism by which they're formed is not fully understood, but the mere existence of this phenomenon is enough to suggest something intriguing. Chiral clouds contain chiralium, yes? Well, what would happen if gamma radiation were to act upon them in the same way as it does in regular clouds? Could chiralium, excited by gamma radiation, exacerbate minute distortions in space-time, somehow loosening the seams that connect us to our beaches? Could chiralium? Okay. And if so, when the excited chiralium mixes with timefall and descends to the ground below, could the entire region beneath the clouds become much more strongly connected with the beach as a result? This could explain why BTs appear in areas prone to timefall. Okay, so the timefall loosens the connection to the beach. Okay. So small distortions in space-time. Alright. Furthermore, if the antimatter we previously thought did not even exist in any measurable quantity on Earth were, in fact, present in such commonplace phenomena as the very clouds above us, would this not lend credence to the theory that BTs, beaches, the world of the dead, all of these things that have existed long before the Stranding? Too much of a theoretical leap? Perhaps. I do not deny our world changed, drastically and irrevocably. Nevertheless, could it not be that the Death Stranding was merely the clap of thunder that brought this great change to our attention, and not the change itself? Okay. So that all this stuff was already there, and the Death Stranding has just kind of blurred the barriers between. Okay. BTs are reaching out to us. 2.4 million years ago, Homo habilis started to craft stone tools. Hands are so very important, don't you think? Our other sensory organs passively interpret data. Our eyes light, our ears sound, our noses smell, our mouths touch. But hands are different. To touch requires conscious action. To grasp, more so. To connect that which is in our left hand with that which is in our right hand, still more. And the handprints we see when BTs seek out humans. Why, I'd say that's just evidence of our otherworldly friends yearning to forge a connection. They're reaching out to us, attempting to bridge the gap between the realm of the dead and that of the living. Interesting. He doesn't seem like he has that many answers, is my main problem with Hartman, but I know that this kind of style of writing is very Kojima. Is, you know, this kind of real lean on ambiguity. But I think it fits in this a lot more than I ever enjoyed it in Metal Gear. Okay. King Midas and the chiral crystals. Rumours have been circulating regarding a man who calls himself King Midas. Unlike his namesake from Greek mythology, however, this gentleman does not turn all that he touches to gold. Instead, he claims to wield the power and create chiral crystals at will. The stories suggest that he gained this power as a result of experiments involving organisms which possessed similar ability. I am of course aware of the existence of microbes that could melt and condense gold, in effect extracting it from ore deposits, but this is the first I have heard of any organism that can do something similar with chiralium. These organisms are apparently akin to cryptobiotes, as well as the coral that is found in the sea, in that they exist outside of time. If this man truly managed to harvest such organisms, then it's an extraordinary achievement which could lead to untold possibilities. Veritable bioalchemy even. Much like his mythical counterpart, however, King Midas is said to have paid a heavy price for his power. Indeed, his body has turned into a mass of particles, a side effect of crystallizing all the chiralium with which he came into contact. It's said that the only evidence of his existence are 2 golden handprints he left behind. Now, I must temper this rather dramatic story by stressing that no microbes capable of the previously described ability have been detected. As such, I suspect the king is nothing more than an urban legend. The king of stories spun by dreamers in a world where chiral crystals are rare and precious and can only be collected from perilous, timefall-soaked places. Perhaps we could even consider it a morality tale. The moral being, of course, that greed is never good, whether one lusts for gold or for chiral crystals. It is, however, a remarkable coincidence that, not long after I first heard talk of this modern-day King Midas, I also started to hear rumours concerning a man wearing a golden mask. Might the two be related? Who knows? Okay, so this would suggest that this King Midas is Higgs, right? Because he can so easily manipulate things, manipulate chiralium. He could make the time fall. He could make it start to rain, couldn't he? He shot like a bolt of something anyway, up to the sky. He can teleport. He's got a real mix of powers. You know, like he can teleport. He can control chiralium. He can summon BTs. I don't know if he could read thoughts or he got a sense, because when he approached Sam, he was those, but he might have just heard those things from a source of his about I've forgotten her name, about the president anyway. So anomaly and all that kind of stuff. So that would suggest that that'd be Higgs. Could be a combat veteran, but it sounds more like Higgs, doesn't it? And the way his hands sort of melted when he was manipulating stuff. Okay. Evolution. Death. I'm at the point now in my life where I don't know how to say evolution or evolution. I don't know which is the English way anymore. I've got to say evolution, Death Stranding, and the fear of dying. Death has been Homo sapiens' constant companion for every step of our evolutionary journey. Our cultures and civilizations have been built with an awareness of our relationship with death, the extent to which we can accept and live with it. Out of fear of the inevitable decomposition and destruction of the flesh, our ancestors developed elaborate embalming techniques, death masks, and the like. Indeed, the mask has ever been a symbol of the soul that transcends this world to exist for eternity in the next. The mummies and sarcophagi of ancient Egypt are but one instance of this. Honoured individuals were given masks and placed inside sarcophagi in order to be preserved for eternity, thereby transcending death and attaining immortality. Paintings and photographs are no different, really. They are simply more modern variants of the Egyptians' masks and sarcophagi. Indeed, all of humanity's crowning achievements, art, language, writing, are arguably a reaction to death, an expression of our desire to overcome it. There are great feats born from fear, and one might even go as far to say that it was the primal fear of death that drove the evolution of our ancestors to Homo sapiens in the first place. In fact, I would go further still. I would posit that it was this fear that brought about the Death Stranding itself. It has certainly seemed more and more plausible of late. I mean, fear of death, yeah, it's just a natural thing, isn't it? It's just, it's not a fear of death itself that is dangerous. And one thing that society has warped and changed is the fear of inevitable death. Not a fear of death in terms of like fear of hurting yourself or getting a disease or falling off something high or do you know what I mean? That's a natural fear. But the fear of the inevitable death of, you know, you're going to die eventually, like that's a different kind of fear. And like, you know, most religions are kind of constructed around that, aren't they? That there's something beyond life, there's something after life, that you shouldn't fear death and that kind of thing. Okay, so we've read these from Mama before, so let's read this last one from Mama. Drones and the singularity. Yeah, the bot is good to go. We're putting it through some field tests within the network service area. Should have the results before long. Delivery efficiency within a given region is expected to improve following a successful Cupid connection as well. No, that won't be a problem. The bot's just a cargo carrier. Human input is required to accept orders and set coordinates. Drone syndrome shouldn't be a factor. And the singularity? Not a chance. Oh man, I don't like that they're so anti-AI, but it's fair enough. Well, think about it. AI doesn't die. It might get upgraded or replaced, but that's not at all comparable to death. It is. It really is. So it has no reason to fear it, you see. Concept is completely foreign, incomprehensible. Death comes to all living things, but only humans have the capacity to understand the implications, to imagine what it means to no longer exist. That's one limitation AI won't ever overcome. That's the reason it won't ever surpass human intelligence. I mean, I disagree with that, but I guess this is within the context of this. An AI would be perfectly capable of understanding it. It'd just be perhaps in a slightly different form. But I understand that this, because of the existence of the beach and the afterlife, I understand that they wouldn't prioritize AI, the depths of AI for this kind of story. They need to emphasize the superiority of a living creature's consciousness. Fragile's father and Fragile Express. My father came up with the name Fragile Express before I was born. The US was Swiss cheese back then. All the void outs had left craters as far as the eye could see. People were losing their minds, looking for a way out. They thought the government would have their back, but it was gone. All the systems, all the gears that kept their world turning, smashed to bits in a matter of seconds. When everything you know breaks, it's hard not to break yourself. Before our new network, there was an old one. The whole nation was online 24/7. Cameras and microphones everywhere, watching and listening and recording. There was a strange sort of comfort in that, people said. A certainty that someone, somewhere, would know if you were in trouble. But after the stranding, that all vanished into the ether. No one was looking out anymore. No one was coming to save you. A lot of folks died waiting before the rest caught on and took matters into their own hands. My father was one of the latter. He'd been working for a private logistics company, and he and some friends figured they were in a position to bring people supplies and repair vital infrastructure Americans used to rely on to survive. They were builders, men and women who understood the value of what was lost and wanted to reclaim it. My father and them really believed they could get it all back, bit by bit, and make us whole, make us America. It was a precious, fragile dream, like so much back then. But if they nurtured it, if they stayed true, he knew it could be ours again. People, ideas, connections, also fragile. The USA was nothing more than a network of people and then connections between them. No wonder it broke apart so easily. But everything that's worth something is fragile. That's why I was given this name. My father's not with us anymore, but the bond between us remains. Sorry. My father's not with us anymore, but the bond between us remains, fragile though it is. Yeah, I mean, I guess she's kind of really drastically affected her father's legacy with everything that's happened. Well, not her, I suppose it's more Higgs. Okay. Yeah, I've read that one already, right? Okay, Bridges stuff. This is from Igor, interesting. I volunteered to join Bridges. Signed up with my brother, Victor. See, we both remembered when America was still America, when we still had planes and satellites, when we were still connected to everyone and everything. The world was different, bigger, and we wanted it back. He was chosen for the first expedition and hit the road damn near straight away. Me, I got told to hand back here in Central, which was okay, I guess. Corpse disposal means you're taking your fair share of timefall in the line of duty. You get a sense for it after a while, a sixth sense when the clouds are about to open up. Of course, the clouds themselves are a big tell, and an inverse rainbow is a guarantee you're in for some shit. But there are smaller signs too. Changes in the air, a smell on the wind. When it hits, you've got power outages to deal with. Far as I understand it, which ain't all that far, it's to do with high concentrations of chiralium causing electromagnetic interference or something, which also interacts with water and kicks up clouds of ozone, which then makes the temperature drop like a rock. Anyway, I may be used to timefall, but that doesn't mean I'm immune to it. Believe me, I'm younger than I look. My big bro would take a lot of pleasure in telling you that if he could see me now. Okay. This is from Victor. The lake at Ground Zero. When I first laid eyes on the lake here at Ground Zero, I was blown away by the sheer size of it. I never imagined anything could be so huge. This was just after the Death Stranding, and not many people had seen the craters up close yet. Back when I was still living with my parents and my brother on the East Coast, an explosion like nothing the world had seen before tore a gaping hole in the heart of America. There were all kinds of rumours floating around at the time that it was a meteor, that it was a nuke dropped by another country. I was just a kid, but even I could tell the adults didn't have a clue, so you could imagine how I felt. And then we found out there had been other explosions, not just here in America, but the world over. By the time we learned they were void outs, and what void outs were, the country was pretty much done. But hey, that was then, and this is now, and things are looking up. I just got told my kid brother's still alive. Word is, he's heading up a corpse disposal team in Capital Knot City. Handled his shit well enough to get picked for the second expedition. 3 more years, and he'll be out here with me. Can't wait to see him again. It's a shame. George Basin. Truth is, chiralium coatings. Truth is, we discovered it by dumb luck. Folks had made a point of building cities outside of timefall regions, but the way stations and the distro centres were a different story. No way around it, really, even though all that exposure meant they deteriorate quicker. But when you're keeping an eye out for things deteriorating, you soon notice how chiralium crystals react when exposed to timefall, which is to say, not at all. They showed no signs of degradation whatsoever, stayed rock solid, even after getting soaked. It sort of made sense. Chiralium comes from the beach, right? And over there, time doesn't pass. Timefall had no effect on the crystals because they may as well exist outside of time. And when we ran a few experiments, that's pretty much what we confirmed. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not build way stations out of chiralium, right? Yeah, if only. Turns out overexposure to that stuff is lethal, and it can't be stored in large quantities either. Still, at least the chiralium coatings we came up with do just enough to keep the rot manageable. That's something. Okay, so maybe there's like a thin coat that they put on stuff to protect buildings from time. Well, interesting. Okay, a prepper interview with the engineer. My horizons ain't exactly broad. That said, I'm not completely cut off from the outside world. I knew what Bridges was, and that they were trying to rebuild trying to rebuild America. But when you're living down here, it's hard to see how that's got anything to do with you and yourself, am I right? My folks holed up in this shelter after the Death Stranding, had a kid and raised him in their slice of paradise, and together we lived off whatever Fragile Express was kind enough to bring our way. They told me tales about the good old days, but I've never had much of an imagination. Couldn't see how a country long gone was any concern of me and mine. Far as I figured, if Fragile Express was happy to keep bringing us stuff, we didn't need anybody else. And we certainly didn't need America, whatever that even was. But then, one day, I was looking at a part for this machine my dad put together. He was an engineer too, and I noticed something. Said made in the USA. Right there in tiny print. Got me thinking that America might not exist anymore, but the stuff Americans built is still around, making our lives a little bit easier even now. You could say that all country lives on in its works, kind of like how my folks live on in me. They died a while back. Anyway, if they were American, I guess that makes me American too. And maybe this shelter is a part of it all. Once I realised that, I started pouring my heart into building stuff to help you guys put the country back together. So building a sense of community, even though they're isolated. It's an inescapable, it's a kind of part of being human, I suppose. Okay, terrorists posing as fragile express couriers from the Craftsman. From the Craftsman. The terrorists have been at it again lately. So, sorry, one of you told me in the comments that the Craftsman is actually, I think is he the director of Horizon Zero Dawn? That's why the holograms of the characters are outside his prepper station. Herman something. I never knew that, which is awesome. So I guess maybe Kojima was kind of just paying homage to games that maybe he'd got influence for this, or he spoke to their directors about and took advice from, perhaps. So the terrorists have been at it again lately, you heard, right? About how they've been sneaking in and out of cities disguised as fragile express couriers. We'll have another disaster on our hands at this rate, but it's not like we can just cut them out. We need Fragile's people to keep on doing what they're doing. We rely on those guys for a lot, though maybe we shouldn't. I hear they're transporting weapons now. Why they'd be so stupid, I can't imagine. Spreading shit around that kills in a world where the dead are ticking BT time bombs. Sure, terrorists are a threat, and mules a royal pain in the arse, but what genius figured escalation was the way to go when we all know where it leads. We need weapons, no, tools, that can take down the bad guys without killing them. And we need the hardware in circulation gone yesterday. We can't keep folks from dying in accidents or getting sick, but we can't keep them from dying, period. But the deaths we can put off, we ought to. Violence isn't just ugly, it's damn near suicidal in this day and age. Which is why I'm looking to make a bunch of less than lethal gear in the hopes that it'll prevent a few idiots from getting themselves and others killed. Yeah, we've been using his weapons quite a bit. So a proper interview from the Timefall farmer, aka Solid Snake. So me, I used to be an ecologist. Emily thought highly of me and my wife's research into Timefall's effect on plant life. She's the one who suggested it could be used to boost agricultural production. See, Timefall's radically altered the ecosystem of the entire continent. Obvious, I know, just as it's obvious we're powerless to stop it. So we had the idea of trying to use it to our advantage instead. Make the environment better, not worse. Easier said than done though. Take void arc craters for example. Local chiral density is generally higher in their vicinity, which correlates with increased timefall. With all that exposure, you'd think they'd turn lush and green again before you know it. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite pan out that way. Nothing grows in any of them. Might be the timefall's done something to the soil, but the truth is I don't have a clue, which was one of the reasons why me and the missus were conducting our research. Gotta say, for the record, that it hadn't crossed our minds that timefall could be used to help grow food. That idea was all Amelie, so credit where it's due. Okay, the junk dealer. Incredible, isn't it, this hourglass? See how the sand flows upwards? Got Chiral's particles in it, that's why it moves like that. And look at the shape of the glass, so elegant, so delicate, just like the girl who made it. Hard to believe it's even of this world. But it was made by human hands, alright. Crazy, isn't it? No wonder everyone in South Knot City knows her work. You can imagine how I felt when she gave it to me. I guess you could say it was a thank you present. She'd asked me to fix something for her, and this is what I got in return. You know, I've done jobs for all kinds over the years, but none of my other customers ever did anything like this for me. Most will just toss you a couple of likes and that's the end of it. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with a like or two, it's just this was different. The moment she gave me this hourglass, I knew I wanted to be with her. Never happened though. Ain't cut out for love and relationships, don't have what it takes. Other people kind of scare me, to be honest. Still, even if we can't be together, at least I'll have this hourglass. Well, you got together in the end, buddy. The Elder. Oh boy, you want to hear about America? Well, you asked for it. But if you're looking for some rose-tinted bullshit, you've come to the wrong place. I was an immigrant, you see. Nothing special about that. Whole country was built by immigrants. Right off the bat, I could see it wasn't quite the land of the free I'd been led to believe. But for a while there, it wasn't so bad. Even when brought into the American dream for a minute. I mean, hell, they let a black guy and a woman take a shot at the presidency, you know? Didn't last, though. Somewhere along the line, people became so damned intolerant all of a sudden. There wasn't any room for other opinions, or other people, for that matter. We even elected a guy right before the Death Stranding that wanted to build a wall along the whole border. Stop anyone like me from coming in. Once that torch started up, I reckon that was that. How could I expect a goddamn thing from a country that didn't want me? How could I hope to get by in a land where the weak and needy got fucked over for profit and peace of mind? So yeah, I figured holding up in a shelter was the way to go. Didn't know how bad things would get. No one did. But I tell you, if it hadn't been for that single decision, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. Just goes to show that the only person anybody can rely on it is his own damn self. UCA, give me a break. You're just pushing the same old bullshit repackaged for a brave new world. Fair enough. The Elder again. Back before the Stranding, there was all kinds of companies selling all kinds of shelters. Hurricane-proof, earthquake-proof, disease-proof, war-proof, terror-proof. Basically had a recession-proof model, for all I know. Anyway, you could picture it all going to hell. They had a shelter for it. Anyway, you could picture it all going to hell. If you could picture it all going to hell, they had a shelter for it. Then the guys building them, military types, astronautical engineers, amateur enthusiasts. Anybody and his uncle was out to make a buck, but if you wanted something that should actually last, you had yourself 3 solid choices. First, there's your American survival shelters units. They were a global military hardware supplier used to build big government bunkers, nuclear shelters, all that. They started selling to the general consumer right before the Stranding. Damn good timing, eh? Anyway, those babies were the creme de la creme. Next up, you had your Millennium Preppers. They made it big right before a string of terror attacks. Started out selling bank vaults and reinforced containers and the like. Wasn't hard for them to break into the shelter game, and they knew how to build them tough. Then there's your domestic guys, world safety housing. All about affordability they were. Cheap and cheerful, well, as cheerful as anyone could be after the Stranding. Still, they did a lot of good for a lot of folks after things went to shit. Okay. So shelters were a thing before the Stranding, it wasn't just after. Okay, so this is an unknown man's journal, so we don't know who this will be. After we've read it, we might get an idea. Today I made a delivery to a shelter near Middle Knot City. It was my longest trip to date, my new personal best. Back when I was starting out, people tried to warn me off the life, saying it was dangerous for prepper young'uns to make runs, and that no one would ever really trust me. But what was I supposed to do? Kids without parents need to eat too. And it's not like I had any skills. 2 arms, 2 legs, a whole lot of grit, that's all I had to offer. Worked out okay so far. I bring people what they need, and in return, they do right by me. The more deliveries I make, the more orders I get. Never a porter around when you need one, so as long as you don't fuck up too badly, someone ought to throw you a bone. Helps that I've got a 6th sense for BTs too. Pretty rare that. It's probably one of the reasons why I get so much work. Sometimes people praise me, tell me I'm doing society a service by helping my fellow man. Can't say that factors into it. I'd sooner keep to myself if I could, but if I've got to survive somehow, and I sure as hell ain't going to manage by myself. Another prepper's kicked the bucket. I went to deliver his medicine as usual this morning, but I guess I was pretty damn late. Poor guy wasn't just dead, but on the verge of going necro. Wasn't no time to take him to an incinerator, so I had to dump him in nearby BT territory. Better that than leaving him to pop, especially since my own shelter is close by. Gotta look out for number 1. When I dumped him though, just before he popped, it was like I could feel the BTs reacting to the corpse. Saw the beach too, strangest thing, but I'd felt it before. When I first disposed of someone, the sensation was stronger this time though. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. What? Don't know if this means I've got dooms, but I'm starting to think there's something special about me. The delivery outfit out west heard tell of my BT sensing abilities and has expressed an interest in bringing me on board. Seems they operate outside Bridges' sphere of influence, and they want to leverage my experience and know-how to expand their operation. Could be interesting. It's funny, I started making runs out of necessity to stay alive, but that's all changed. I'm an altruist now. I live to help other people. Preppers around these parts rely on me. Hell, they wouldn't last 5 minutes without me. What would my daddy say if he could see me now, He taught me man's his own keeper, but here I am, part of a community. Working with other people, bringing the world together. Daddy always told me that the wide, wide world was dangerous, that we had to stay in our shelter, spend our whole lives there, die there. Well, fuck that. Community's what it's all about. Fair enough. Number 4. A buddy of mine died today. He was out in the mountains on a delivery, and it was so goddamn foggy. I guess he lost sight of the trail. He called me, asking for help, but then the line went dead. I saw the void out from here, nearly blinded me. Guess he wandered into BT territory. There's not many of us porters left these days. Not many you could trust to get the job done anyway. Folks quitting or dying, going mule, attrition's a bitch. If we're to keep on, we're going to need better equipment and someone else who can track BTs. I can still manage sometimes, but my power's getting weaker. I can feel it. Just wish I knew what to do, because at this rate I'm fucked. We all are. Okay, that is everything. Wow, that took quite a while, so we're all caught up. So there's been some interesting theories. Tend to get more interesting stuff from Hartman. This bit about King Midas does sound a lot like Higgs. Could be a combat veteran. Who knows? Sort of very anti-AI kind of ideas in the Mama bit that we read. We learned about how Fragile's father established the business, and it's probably going to be a big burden on her, the fact that the whole reputation of the thing is kind of down the toilet at the minute. We learned about how the prepper stations and the shelters were all being built before the Death Stranding, so maybe as a response to growing fears of terrorism and things of that ilk. And then we have the journal of this unknown porter who had a similar ability to Sam where he could sense the BTs. Okay, so other thing I need to do, I need to catch up on my mail, which is pretty deep. I'm not going to necessarily read everything, but we'll see. Okay, from the weather station. You know, I'm not even technically part of the core staff. I'm medical. I was posted here to keep an eye on our skeleton crew, make sure their heads stay straight, and somewhere along the line got roped into processing deliveries too. Anyway, before we became a part of the chiral network, this place was a weather station in name alone. We were collecting meteorological data, but only over a pathetically small area, and we weren't able to share it with anyone. Prior to the stranding, they had countless weather stations circling the whole planet, watching every move the clouds made, measuring every twist and turn of the wind. With that much data, it was easy to create forecasts, but things are different for us. We don't have a top-down view of the whole picture, but the Cupid and the network have provided us with the next best thing. Now that we can collate data from all over, we can generate more comprehensive models, which give us a much better chance of accurately tracking fluctuations in chiral density. Not only that, we can send weather reports to every city, prepper shelter and bridges facility on the network. Now we really are doing something useful. We owe you big time, Sam. Yeah, so I guess that makes it easier for porters to get around. Like we read about that story of that porter dying because he ran into a BT area, whereas if they have the weather report, it's much less likely. Hey Sam, you heard the latest rumours out of Capital Nut City? People have been seeing some kind of weird glowing thing up on the rooftops near the isolation ward. Seems it's a car, the part of a human that doesn't turn into a BT. That's what people are saying anyway. Apparently, they were a common sight back in the old days. Back before the stranding. Story goes that they were lost souls wandering around. One of my pals tried to take a closer look, see what's what, but he couldn't find anything. I'm sure you could do better if you put your mind to it though, right? A weird glowing object near Capital Knot City. Interesting. Okay, that's worth checking out, right? Okay. Still keeping on, Sam. Me, I've been practicing going outside longer and farther each time, though thought I'd conquered my fears at one point that I'd be making deliveries like nobody's business before long. That was before I wandered into mule territory for the first time. I panicked and dropped damn near everything I was carrying. Guess it belongs to them now. That little hiccup aside, I've managed to put up a few signs and watchtowers and other stuff I figured guys like you might appreciate, so it's not like it's all bad. I haven't met any other porters face to face yet, but I can tell they're liking what I've done. As in, they've given me likes. Oxy and smart drugs might help level me out, but I tell you, when someone hits you with that like, it's a feeling like no other. That confirmation that you've made a positive difference in someone else's life, it's grand, man. Anyway, good luck with everything. Sending all the love and likes. Okay, this is all from the first region, isn't it? far apart but always connected. Dear Sam, thanks again for all your help. The Chiral printer's still running like a dream, but it kind of feels like one too. Seeing all those new buildings popping up out there, it hasn't solved all our problems, but of course, the nearby wasteland's still crawling with BTs, but now we can obtain a good chunk of our supplies via the network, and they can't interface with that. To think we're connected, even all the way out here. Didn't used to think that it was such a special thing. The whole world was one big network back before the Death Stranding. Video, audio, text, every bit of information was available for one and all. But now we've gone one better. The chiral network and the printer can be used to send tangible things. Well, in a way. Welcome to the new America. Once we're able to send food and medicine too, you won't have to put your neck on the line for our sake anymore. I hope that day comes soon. I really do. Okay, the Ludens fan. It's great seeing you again, Sam. You really are one in a million. Oh, I started using the chiral network to look into the history of the whole Ludens thing. I don't have it all figured out yet, but it's clear that it was pretty important. I mean, the game it symbolised was friggin' huge. Completely unlike anything that had come before. It exploded man's potential to play in exactly the way Huizinga described when he coined the phrase Homo Ludens. He had this theory that play was older than even culture itself, and was at the heart of what made us who we are. I believe that if we can rediscover the kind of play he was talking about, we can undo the damage caused by chiral contamination and rid the world of Homo Gestalt and Homo Demons once and for all. To think that games could be the key to saving humanity. Hey Sam, did you hear? One of the porters I hooked up with hermetic grenades took down the BT the other day. There was a sharp drop in chiralium density that coincided with his report, so there's no denying he got the son of a bitch. And it's all thanks to you and the UCA. It's an exchange joining up. We sacrifice a little privacy, share a little expertise, and you agree to look out for us. Not a huge price to pay, but it's enough to help the cause. A tax, if we're being honest. We pay, we get protection. Contracts alone won't cut it. We're just free riders that way. Not giving up enough, not getting enough. And if you dodge your taxes, you can't be surprised when there's nobody around to look out for you. Exactly. Quid pro quo and all that. The info and tech I've received from Bridges just might be enough for me to start producing hermetic grenades in bulk. If so, then who knows? Maybe we can wipe out the current crop of BTs. Of course, there's a catch. Only your blood seems to work. Don't misunderstand. I'm not going to ask you to bleed yourself dry. To be honest, I'm surprised we get as much from you as we did. It's like you're donating a pint every time you take a break. Well, it can't be easy, but we sure are grateful, and don't you forget it. You all could learn from Fragile Express. I remember the Stranding like it was yesterday. Craters all over. Intercity comms cutting out, distribution networks shot to hell. Wasn't no local boys to help a fella out no more, let alone feds. Nope, it was every man for himself. Every man who didn't work for no private courier outfit, that is. Them ones took it upon themselves to keep on delivering the goods folks needed to survive, in spite of the cost, and without hope or expectation of reward. What good's money that ain't worth the paper it's printed on after all? No, them private operators had to get by on a thank you here and there and fuck all else. But supplies kept on coming. Sure, a few went mule on us, but that didn't seem to faze the rest none. The country fell apart, then the cities, till all that was left holding the world together was them, and they know it too. Knew we'd all be screwed without them. But they didn't hold it over us. They just kept moving best they could. For us independents out there and the huddled masses in the cities, Fragile Express and all them others, we owe them a hell of a lot. Bridges though, you all still got a lot to prove. Okay, fine. Okay, all new hermetic grenades. Yep. One step closer to understanding the beach. Hey Sam, I've just submitted my latest progress report. I know the Evo Devo unit utilises the chiral network to access the beach, but I don't understand how. I'm not sure anybody does, but whoever came up with the theory behind it is a bona fide genius. We can't reclaim the past we lost, but piecing it together from what's left is the next best thing. So it took a truly great mind to figure that out. You know what it reminds me of? Pictures. After all, what's a picture but a fragment? A two-dimensional snapshot of space and time, not to mention the thoughts and feelings of whoever took it. A physical memory to match the ones in our heads. They say we've each got our own beach, and it's these beaches that we route the network through. Maybe that's a part of it. Maybe there's more of us in our memories, in our beaches than we realise. But I'm just a layman when it comes to this stuff. If anything, You've got a better chance of understanding it. You're the one with dooms, after all. Countries are bullshit, but alright, dude. Yeah, I'm an inspiration. The bots are here, but is that for the best? That bot you brought us, it's a real piece of work. It takes everything into account. Cargo type, terrain, and calculates the quickest route every time. And if it does happen to run into a BT, there's no void out to worry about. If we can teach it how mules operate, it might even be able to anticipate their movements and avoid them too. Which means all the risks in using human porters, the dangers you and yours face every day, well, they could be a thing of the past. Might not be a need for you to put your life on the line any longer. Time to start planning for the easy life, eh? But it is for the best. But is it for the best, I wonder? Leaving everything to the bots. Isn't that what led to drone syndrome and all that? Better to keep people involved in some respect, maybe. Same with cars back in the day. Everyone was about self-driving vehicles, but if you ask me, a human hand ought to always be on the wheel. Am I right? Order. Bring me my time for, Porter. Thanks for delivering the delivery bot, Sam. I heard you were headed to that Timefall farm down by the way. Don't know if you heard, but rumour has it they've been brewing beer. Maybe even using Timefall to speed up the process. I'd sure like to have a taste if that's true. And if they join the Carol network, I'd be able to place an order with them, wouldn't I? Of course you can't print beer, so I'd have to rely on you again to get it here. Pity the bots. I think I delivered that already. Chop chop, Sam. People get to... What kind of porter grades are you getting these days, Sam? It can't be easy. Yeah, that's just advice. Yeah, rebuild the roads. That's about the beer again. Yeah. Yeah, that's about the beer. Junk disposal. Yeah, that's throwing it in Crater Lake. We used to pack into theatres. Yeah, that's just a memory. That's about utility pouches. Okay, I've not... feeling tired, Sam? Wouldn't blame you. After all, you're not a machine. You need breaks and whatnot. Lucky for you, I know the perfect place. Some hot springs, a hop, skip, and a jump northeast of where the junk dealers hold up. The Crater Digestive Baths, as I believe they're called. Good for getting the bowels moving in case you're backed up, but the waters are also good for general aches and pains. Miraculous healing properties, apparently. Does wonders for a stressed BB, even. Not one that's suffering from autotoxemia, though, obviously. Anyway, you should give it a try sometime. Okay, so I've not found any of them yet. We'll have to go check that out. Delivery for a prepper. Sam, I have a delivery request for you. There's a prepper out there who's got a special talent, calls herself a cosplayer, and she can apparently dress herself up to look like damn near anyone and anything. There's no one better when it comes to designing and making clothes and accessories, but she needs... I think I delivered that already. I'm very unique. Okay, that's just him asking to become a member. They got married. Please look out for them. Wonderful news, my daughter's getting married. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, magazines. I might read this stuff in my own time because it doesn't necessarily add anything to the lore. A strange light at the incinerator. This is going to sound crazy, but you've got to believe me, Sam. So I was at the incinerator. They found a body near the waste station and it needed to be burned. Since we don't exactly have a team of corpse disposal guys on call, I was given the job. I've been outside more than the other guys lately, so it makes sense. It wasn't like I could say no. Someone had to do it. Doesn't mean I wasn't scared shitless, though. I don't have dooms or anything, but I don't need a special powers to know when a BT's caught your scent, and I could tell they weren't far behind. I just wanted to get the job done and come home, but then one of the fuckers popped out of nowhere and nearly gave me a heart attack. Somehow I made it into the incinerator without getting grabbed. That's when things got really weird. I saw this glowing thing, this light, I guess. I wanted to take a closer look, but I wasn't about to take any chances. I had to get the hell out of there. I can't stop thinking about it now, though. You should check it out if you have the chance. There's 2 of them now. There's one near Central Knot and one by the incinerator. Yeah, thanks for delivering the prototype. Yeah, we read that about it getting nuked. Yeah. Desperate for a second pizza. That's a delivery from here. Fragile's name isn't in mud anymore. South Knot City lives to see another day, eh? I remember the bomb those bastards set off before. People said Fragile was working with them, but they had it backwards. She was trying to save us, just like you did. Fortunately this time, everybody knows her part in it. Fragile's name won't be mud around here much longer, I'll wager. It's all too easy to forget. We're still alive because of people outside our little enclave. But you've helped remind us we're not alone. We're part of the UCA, which means we can't just look to others for assistance. We've got to give back in return too, and we will. Okay. Okay, delivery, recovery request. Yeah, that's something at his place. Wheat's great and all, but just about her research. That's after I cleared the mule camp. Are we destroying ourselves? Before you came through, there were people blaming Bridges for our troubles left and right, saying it was their fault terrorists were targeting us more and more. There's no denying that they were, not after we lost Middle North or half of South, not to mention the other smaller incidents all over. Hell, even our old friend Mama got mixed up in one too. What we've got isn't new though. Well, before the stranding, folks all over had a hard-on for stockpiling nukes and other weapons of mass destruction. Frankly, if the world hadn't gone to shit, we'd probably have blown it up by now, I tell you. There's nothing more dangerous and destructive than human beings. Call it morbid, but a part of me wants us to get it over with already, if we're gonna. It's what humanity deserves, isn't it? If the stupidity we've shown in the wake of the stranding is any indication. Marriage sucks. I can't help thinking life was easier back when I was... Yeah, that's... pretty fair enough. You sure to use your auto hood? Okay. So it does make wandering through water easier. Okay, Conan. Okay. Okay, I get it. Yeah, that's from outside. And I was taking out mule camps left and right, so maybe the one from... Is the one from the collector? I don't know what triggers it anyway. Alright guys, that's taken a long time, so that's just proof that I wouldn't have got through all that stuff on my own. So we'll leave this little bonus episode there. I'm going to go deliver the pizza, I think, to Peter, see if that affects anything. So I don't know if many of you will have watched this, but if you have... you know, let me know anything in the lore and discuss any theories we have about where this is going, what the involvement of the combat veteran might be with Higgs and all that kind of good stuff. So leave me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Just remember everyone, never trust and on crate. Right, I'll see you next time.